You're listening to the Greeks Gridiron. Now here's your host, Ethan Hristodoulou.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Greeks Gridiron. I am Ethan Hristodoulou and it's that time again. Thursday Night Football is tonight. We are kicking off week number 14 of the NFL. So today we are making our prediction for that Thursday Night Football matchup between the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions in Detroit here. NFC North implications on the line here. If Green Bay wants any chance at all at potentially securing a number one seed in the NFC for the playoffs this year, they have to get the win against Detroit in this game and obviously hope for maybe another loss somewhere else in between and some things to break their way, but it all starts with this game here. So dive into that comment section. Let me hear from you all. What are you looking at? Who do you like in this contest? Who's taking that W? Give me a final score prediction, but we will dive into this football matchup here. And the first thing that I'm looking at, the most important in my opinion, is going to be the ground game. Both of these teams can run the football effectively and beat their opponents into submission through the run game here. Josh Jacobs himself, nearly 1,000 yards this season. He's actually third best in the NFL with 987 altogether, averaging about 4.5 yards per attempt. He has 8 total touchdowns on the ground this year. He has been huge for this Packers offense in helping balancing out the unit here. But the problem that the Packers are facing on that flip side, David Montgomery, Jahmyr Gibbs, two absolute workhorse running backs on the same roster who could very much be the number one given whatever week it may be if necessary, with a total of 329 attempts. You're looking at nearly 1,700 yards rushing, averaging about 5.2 yards per attempt combined between the two running backs, and a total of 21 touchdowns. Listen, both of these teams can run the football effectively, but I do have to give the edge to this one over to Detroit, with having two running backs who could be legitimate starters on a lot of football teams around the league right now. It does give them a bit of an advantage here. Both the run defenses are pretty good. They rank inside the top 10 in rushing yards allowed, but Detroit does have a little bit of an edge there, averaging about 13 yards per game less. And just altogether, besides that, they're pretty neck and neck. I mean, in terms of yards per attempt allowed, there's like a 0.2 difference there between the two teams. Touchdowns allowed, I think there's like 1 touchdown difference. Run stuff rates separated by like 0.2%. So both these run defenses are pretty good, top 10 units. Slight edge goes to Detroit here, but both of these teams have no issues running the football. They love to run the football and set the tone on the ground here. So there is a very good chance that this gets very physical on the ground here. The other thing I'm looking at, and one thing that I'm very curious in seeing how it shakes out, is just the overall score of this game here. The reason I say that is because if you look at what Detroit's been doing in their last 4 home games, the numbers are rather ridiculous. They're averaging about 42 points per game in their last 4 home games, scoring 52 points on 2 separate occasions. Now, you can point out the opponent in those matchups. It's fine. I get it. But listen, 40 points is a lot in the NFL. Never mind dropping 50, and never mind doing it twice. It's not too often that you get to see a team do that more than once in a season, let alone 2 times. So you can't ignore how good Detroit has been at home this season. In that same span of their last 4 games, the Green Bay Packers themselves on the road, they've scored 26 points per game, and so they've put up about 30 points twice in those 4 road games here. So I'll be very interested in seeing just how well these defenses can step up, because both of these teams have proved that whether they're on the road with the Packers or if they're at home in Detroit with the Lions, they can put up some points, and it's really going to come down to what these defenses can do here. The other thing that I think is really important here is going to be ball protection overall. Very simple topic. Yes, I'm sure you're probably sitting there going, of course, taking care of the football, but I think it's a little bit more important in this game, just considering how good both of these football teams are at taking the football away. These are some of the best teams in the NFL in terms of takeaways this season. Green Bay right now currently sitting on 23 total takeaways defensively. If you, of course, can think of a guy like Xavier McKinney, who is currently tied in the NFL right now with the league lead with 7 interceptions. He has been a INT machine. And Detroit themselves, not too far behind. They're sitting at 19 takeaways themselves, so 4 less, but still by no means a slouch when it comes to taking that football away. That defense loves to get after it as well. 2 very aggressive defenses, and funny enough, Detroit just so happens to have the guy that is tied with Xavier McKinney in interceptions with Kirby Joseph, who himself has 7 picks on the season as well. So the 2 guys with the most interceptions this season going head to head. Both of these quarterbacks need to pay attention to where these guys are, because they have been feasting on quarterbacks and those footballs flying through the air here. One more thing I want to keep an eye on here, and this is pretty important, especially when you look at the Lions, because we talked about run defenses a minute ago, and I think it's something worth pointing out. Detroit, on the D-line, they are going to be a little bit thin going into this football game here, and is one reason why I pointed out the ground game initially when we got things going here. Like, yes, you have Jordan Love on one side. Yes, you have Jared Goff on the other side. Both quarterbacks have been very good this year. I would say Jared Goff has had a MVP level type of campaign this season himself. There was that 4-game stretch he had that was literal lunacy with his completion percentage, having a perfect game, all of that. But the reason I'm looking at the ground game a little bit more here is because while I give the edge on offense to, of course, Detroit having Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, I am a bit concerned about the defensive line in Detroit right now. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson, he's out. He's been done for the season for quite some time now. But you also look at some of the other guys that are set to miss this game. You've got DJ Reader, Josh Paschal, and Levi Onwuzurike as well. 3 more guys on that defensive line. That group is going to be thin. There's going to be a lot of snaps that need to be played here, and those guys are going to have to find a way to, their coaching staff, I should say, needs to find a way to get a solid rotation in there where their guys aren't gassing out midway through the game and then Josh Jacobs is just running wild on them. There is a very big concern in that department as far as I'm concerned. And then when you look at Green Bay, their injuries, not necessarily the worst in the world, but they do have some key important ones to look at here. Romeo Doubs on offense is going to be out for this matchup here, but it's the secondary that I am a little bit worried about. They could be a little bit thin in the cornerback room, as both Jair Alexander and Corey Ballantyne will be missing from the secondary here. So a little bit thin in that cornerback room, but overall, I'm not super concerned about it, but not having Jair, definitely a tough blow altogether. Now, as for who I think is going to win here, this is tough because both of these teams are really good, and even with the turnover issues that we've seen from Jordan Love, basically the majority of this season, he has cleaned it up the last couple of weeks, throwing 4 touchdowns, no picks. But again, you have Jared Goff on the other side of the football field, who has just had a literal MVP type of season this year. And again, the 1-2 punch of Jahmyr Gibbs with David Montgomery, coupled with the fact that you have a pretty star-studded group of skill talent altogether catching the football as well in Detroit. I do have my reservations about Green Bay getting it done, but at some point I do keep telling myself the Lions have to lose eventually, right? Like, yeah, they're 11-1. There's a chance they could go 16-1 on the season. Absolutely. I'm not saying it's not possible, but if there was a team to take them down in Detroit, I would probably peg one of their division rivals, being the Packers or the Vikings, to do it at this stage in the season. And it feels like that clock is ticking for another Detroit Lions loss. It's just not very likely that a team loses only one football game in a season. And so I am keeping that in mind as well. However, I think I am still going to take the Detroit Lions for the win. So if I swerved you on that one there, I hope I got you, but I think I am going to lean Detroit here. They have just been playing such good football, and while I am nervous about that defensive line, do not get me wrong, I think what's going to happen is it's going to cause this game to wind up having a massively high point total. We're not a betting channel here, but I do like to look at odds and things like that, and I believe the over-under is setting at like nearly 52 points, so I kind of agree with that. I think there is a very good chance we're going to see some high numbers as far as offensive scoring is concerned here, especially if the Packers are able to take advantage of a thin defensive line over there in Detroit. So I'm expecting a lot of points. I think both these offenses are going to find a decent amount of success. You have some weaknesses due to injuries on both sides there. I mean, Jared Goff, knowing that the secondary is going to be a little bit thin for the Packers, I'm sure is going to absolutely take advantage here. And again, there is despite the fact that Detroit, in my opinion, has had a far more successful rushing attack than Green Bay overall through their entire running back room, there is a weakness that you can exploit on Green Bay's end that could allow Josh Jacobs to have one of his best performances of the season here. As for a final score, I think I'm leaning very high scoring in this game here. This is hopefully going to be a very good Thursday night football game and what has been a lackluster group of Thursday night football games so far this season. So I'm going to take the Lions 35-33. We're going to get points. It's going to be tight. I think the Packers will bring them right to the very finish line, but ultimately in Detroit, I feel really good about this Lions team. If the Packers pull off the upset, by no means am I going to be surprised. I would be less shocked, to be honest with you, just because at some point I do feel like the Lions have to lose maybe another game. But I really think in Detroit right now, the Lions are just too much to beat. And with the running back room, Jared Goff playing the way he's playing, the defense has been very good this season overall, and they've weathered the storm of injuries very well to this point. I think I like the Lions in Detroit. So let me know in that comment section down below. Who do you got? Who do you like? Who do you think is going to have big performances in this game? What's the final score prediction? Who's winning the game overall? Let me know. But as always, if you made it to the end, I greatly appreciate it. And I'll see you all next time. Have a good one.